Welcome to the show where we talk service, sacrifice, and stories, connecting you to the past and the most interesting people in the field of veteran causes and commemoration. My name is Ryan, along with co-host Matt, and today my other co-host Matthew. We are all with Memory Inc., a company committed to using technology for good as we change the way the world remembers. Today we are talking with Amanda Thompson, the executive director of the Best Defense Foundation. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Amanda, it's great to have you on the show. I know that, we've had the pleasure of meeting. We've met you on the American continent, and the other Matthew has met you overseas in France. There's a big story there. But since our listeners haven't had a chance to meet you yet and learn more about your foundation, the Best Defense Foundation, would love to just hear a little bit more about that organization. And we're so excited to dig in kind of what keeps you going day to day. Is there a typical day to day at the Best Defense for you?
In a sense, yes, we're a typical nonprofit. My job is fundraising and reaching out and making people aware of what we do, taking care of veterans, always planning and coming up with new programs of how we can cater to all generations of veterans, because we're not just one generation specific. In that sense, yes, it's a typically nonprofit daily movements, but also the great thing about nonprofits is really you create what you want to create. So we're always thinking of new and creative ways to reach this community, to make other people aware, and then share in this legacy preservation of those who gave so much.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool to watch the way you work, all of the innovative things you're doing. I know last year was a big year for you. What were the highlights for you for last year? If you could name like a top 3.
Well, at the top of everybody's, I think, is Normandy 80th.
Yeah.
It was a huge undertaking for our team. We are 90% volunteer, so we only have 2 employees that are paid. The rest of everybody else is taking off their time, taking away time from their families and giving back to the veterans. So we took 50 World War II veterans back to Normandy.
Yes.
To meet those that they've liberated, to commemorate the 80th of the D-Day landings, and to really just say thank you to those who participated, not only just in the D-Day landings, but then, throughout the war and their conflict. It was incredible. We met heads of state and thousands and thousands of people who came from all over the world to meet them, and just amazing to see the outpouring of love.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough, and Matthew, we were able to be over there, and it was such a special thing to be able to see just people coming in, but really especially those veterans. Is there anything, in particular from that time you're out there that really stood out in your mind, or was like one of those kind of special moments you won't forget?
Yeah, for the 80th, for me, it was seeing the Legion of Honor's presentation by President Macron and President Biden. One of our veterans, Calvin Shiner, is an African-American veteran. Mm-hmm. He had never been back to Normandy. He served, did his time, went on, had a family and had a normal, quote unquote, normal life, and now is on this stage in front of millions of people receiving the Legion of Honor on behalf of all of the people that he served with. And many of those have passed on, and you could just see the emotion in his eyes and see how important this was to him. And it's a deeper level for him, knowing that he was fighting on 2 fronts, at home with the racism and all of the things that he had to go through, and then abroad fighting, this larger cause. So that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
As a whole, our veterans always love our school visits. On every battlefield program we do, we visit a local school. So they have a chance to talk with the next generation. They separate into classrooms. They're having that interface of one-to-one interaction. And the students get to ask questions. They get to hear firsthand from these veterans that won't be here in the next couple of years. And that's really incredible to think that they will be the ones carrying on the legacy.
Yeah. And if I remember, Matthew, I might be wrong here, but I think you were in the crowd for the ceremony. Am I wrong?
No, I was indeed. And that's actually something I was going to comment on as well, that despite the gravity of the ceremony of the Legion of Honor, it was incredibly simple. And I think that made it more somber. And sitting in the crowd and watching, President Macron go man to man and just being able to experience that was unforgettable. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it because it was such a beautiful moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm reminded of, pardon me, Amanda, I was back home on this side of the Atlantic, but watching the video play back and seeing the veterans, like some of them still carrying on in French, which was really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, we had quite a few veterans who either grew up speaking French or learned French after. And so that also added another layer for families and the French people when we were go through the parade route and we were pushing wheelchairs down the parade route. But the veterans would stop and be able to speak with them and have a conversation. And just, I didn't know what they were saying, but you could definitely see what they were feeling and what they were expressing. And so there was lots and lots of tears. You can't go on one of these programs and not pretty much cry the whole time.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, like the logistics? 50-something veterans, how many volunteers? Was there another plane that I'm not aware of that flew the whole support staff over? Tell us a little bit about how that all came together.
Yeah, so we have incredible partners at Delta Airlines who, for the last 3 years, have supplied a charter for us to fly from Atlanta to directly into Normandy. So typically, everybody else has to fly to Paris and then take that long drive to Normandy. We knew 3 years ago that this is just going to get harder and harder to do with 100-year-olds.
Yeah.
So Delta, 3 years ago, we flew out with them, and they're at this very small little regional airport in Deauville.
Yeah.
And they're literally walking the runway and measuring the runway to make sure and we land this large of a commercial airline here. That's never been done at this airport. So the airport was a big partner. Delta obviously provided the aircraft, and they just stepped up in every way. So we have an incredible team of volunteers who are caregivers for the veterans. We have a medical team that come along to make sure everybody's safe and healthy. And then Delta steps up in other ways and provides just an exponential amount of support for us. Along with Michelin, this year we had Boeing.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's really incredible to see corporations take on our mission of taking care of the ones who took care of us and embody what we do. It's really heartwarming and
yeah. Nice. Yeah, and that's amazing. I love actually like pacing down the runway and such. You know, it gets me thinking though, like you have all these volunteers, you have medical staff. I imagine you're a nonprofit and you rely a ton on donations. Like where do you have these corporate sponsors obviously who help out immensely, but there's a lot more that has to go in there to cultivate these experiences that are so important for those veterans, but as well as us to witness those veterans have that experience, I think is so important. So where do you get the majority of your donations?
Yeah, so we have a great corporate giving program. We're taking on sponsors daily, but really just the everyday donors, the monthly donors. I can give $5 here. That makes such a difference, especially when we're all volunteers, because all of that money goes directly back into these veteran programs. You know, we're not only taking care of World War II veterans, we're also taking care of our Stronghold through our Stronghold program, which is special forces operators that are coming out of the military. They're losing that sense of purpose, passion, team. And so we have a retreat that they go to in Utah, and they really gain skills for mental health and physical rehabilitation, learning how to reintegrate into society. So that all of these donations come into directly supporting veterans of all generations. So we really rely on the public support for that.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to hear. And I appreciate you saying that even that wasn't aware of that program. And coming out of the military myself, I had a lot of friends who were combat veterans. That transition can be incredibly tough. And yet there's these skills that they have that many people won't have. And it's like, how do we help them transfer that to the day-to-day? And I didn't realize you supported programs like that.
Yeah. Our founder, Donnie Edwards, who's a former NFL player, he was coming across a lot of special forces veterans and would talk a lot with them about losing that team aspect, losing that community support that you've kind of insulated and built. NFL players go through similar feelings when they retire or get out of the NFL. So we saw a lot of synergy there and decided to kind of build up this program. And it's kind of our next push. So 2021, we started with just one retreat, one cohort. Last year, we did 8. So we're starting to see more getting into that community and really focusing on helping these guys through that transition.
No, that's amazing. I think that's such a important thing to do. And again, it highlights the work that, often when people think of commemoration, we're thinking of this, World War II, but you deal with all veterans, right? So that doesn't matter what conflict that is, that moves all the way to today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our next step for Battlefield Returns we'll go to Vietnam and we'll start bringing Vietnam veterans back. Probably not 2025, but maybe 2026 we'll do a Korean War return. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that your sacrifice and your service is not in vain. It will always be remembered. It is always important. And we will continue on your legacy. You don't have to be a combat veteran. You don't have to have had a Medal of Honor experience, because everyone did their part and everyone contributed in a way. And that's really important to look at the big picture because we wouldn't be able to live in this country or do the things that we do without men and women who step up and serve.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. And I love that attitude is, when we look at our militaries and the serving militaries, the smaller portion of that military was actually combat. It's the amount of support services, and it's all part of that team and it wouldn't have happened where we are today without that collective effort. And they're all so important and very important to recognize. And I love that you take that lens, because that's often a forgotten detail.
Yeah, I'll share with you a little story. So on our Battlefield Return program in 2023, we took a veteran. His name was Jack Kenyon. He worked for Air Transport Command. So he was a pilot ferrying supplies, wounded, back to the United States and to England to get them out of the war zone. He told his caregiver, I don't really know why they chose me. I don't know why I'm here. I didn't do anything. And so his caregiver, who was not a veteran, but really took that to heart and really took the time to be like, look, you did your part. Without you, blood couldn't get to the medical stations. Without you, supplies, mail couldn't get to, these soldiers overseas. This was all very important to the cause. So he came back home and had a kind of new lease on what that looked like. And he emailed us and said, I just ran into a Vietnam veteran who kind of had the same mentality as me. And I got to tell him of my story of going to Normandy and how what I did mattered and what he did mattered as well. And Jack was able to come back with us for the 80th, and he just passed away in November. So he passed away knowing that what he did was important and that he was honored. He was one of those Legion of Honor recipients this past June. So you never know.
Love it.
Just the little differences that make for someone's life.
Well, I love that. And I think, that's such a beautiful story, because it shows the way the Best Defense Foundation is really making a difference for these veterans. Here's this individual who just almost, felt sheepish about his service in a way. But what is so beautiful is that pay it forward, and how he was able to internalize that and then share that with that other vet. Like, that shows that impact you're making. And absolutely, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's got to be really, really challenging to be in your position as well, with all of these meaningful moments that are, the lifespan isn't forever, for the individuals that you get to share these poignant moments with. And, I think it's got to be maybe I guess a hazard of the role that you found yourself in.
It is the hardest part of my job. I have been to more funerals than I ever want to. But, I started my career at Pearl Harbor. So I got to know a lot of Pearl Harbor survivors and their families, and they are the oldest generation of World War II. I lost a lot of them during my career with the Park Service, and then now moving into this, I'm continuing that. But I am so lucky and so honored to be able to meet them, spend time with them, get to know their families. To me, And I always thought about this. Pearl Harbor, is a day. It was December 7th, one day, 5 hours, incredibly, changed world history. But these men and women went on to lead incredible lives, and to get to learn about their lives and share that with other people is really just an incredible experience. I'm so honored to be able to do that.
I was going to ask the question, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you think you would
I
have
was
so much
kid
impact?
and always knew it. I always knew what I wanted to do. I visited Pearl Harbor when I was 13. And that was when Pearl Harbor, the movie, was being filmed. I came home and saw Ben Affleck in a uniform. And just
that's what sealed it, right?
So everybody trashes that movie, but I will grant my career to that movie.
Amazing.
So yeah, I wanted to be a historian at Pearl Harbor. And I remember 14, 15-year-old me in high school telling everybody I was going to do that. And so when I was 23, I worked at the World War II Museum straight out of college, and then went on to Pearl Harbor after that. And I've really just lived out my dream of this in this career. And everything that I've done has culminated to what I'm doing with Best Defense Foundation, of really pouring back into the veterans, not just telling their stories, but being able to just give them some love and purpose back into their life.
Well, I love that. We could do the podcast and call it Chasing Your Dream podcast, because you seem to be right on that. But, that does lend me to kind of my next thought and question, which is around commemoration and some of the challenges. The world changes and it kind of ebbs and flows. But what do you view as maybe with some of the more poignant challenges in commemoration right now?
I mean, it's always how do you say this? I think you get farther and farther away from history. We don't experience war as we did in 1945. The whole country is not galvanized against one cause, especially now. There's a lot of infighting and political divide and all the things. So commemorations will follow those patterns, and I think they will continue to evolve. We are definitely moving away from the statues of generals and those who we deem important now. I think we have learned our lesson about people are complicated. Good people can do bad things. Bad people can do good things. So commemorations will then really focus on the doers, the people who get up and do something about something that they see that's wrong, something that needs to be changed. I mean, I'm hopeful for the future that will be what we focus on. We do an incredible program, the Next Gen program, which is an education program. So our students, 18 to 23, they go through a submission process, and they're able to go with us on our battlefield return. So last year we took 16, I believe. This year we're taking 10 to Normandy, and they get to walk the footsteps of history with those that created it. And I think that's really an important piece of commemoration, because they then take it back into their communities and tell these stories. So it's very layered. I'm definitely not the person to solve all this, but I think the acknowledgement of a larger story is really important in moving commemorations forward.
And I just love hearing that, because taking those 10 students, it's very similar to taking a 13-year-old girl to Pearl Harbor and look at what your career's done, and you become that voice. And so we can't underestimate the impact that those students in that experience can have. And that's literally passing that torch, as the analogy goes.
Yeah, I mean, I tell the students all the time, if I had this kind of program when I was 14, 15 years old, I would have jumped at the chance. And so I'm hopeful that they will take that in. And these are the next leaders of America. When you meet these kids, they are smart, and they realize that this is a gift that they are being given. I mean, it comes at no cost to them. So they're just putting all of their energy and time into learning from these veterans.
Amazing.
What an incredible program. That's great.
Yeah. 43 is a little old for the program, isn't it? Thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Right. I know. It's we're thinking of this, the challenges of commemoration. You see, Best Defense is approaching commemoration in such a unique way from many different angles. Here at Memory Anchor, we're taking that technology lens on it because one of the reasons is we want to engage people in ways, and especially that younger generation, in the medium that they're using. What is the role of technology you see in commemoration kind of moving into the future?
The interaction is a big part of it. Usually you're a spectator or you're either watching or on the stage. But now I think people can interact with the stories, learn individuals. I look at TikTok and just the conversations around TikTok are mind blowing to me because I'm like, I learned so much from watching veteran stories and just people's stories. And I think that that's a big piece of it, is breaking it down to make it more personal. It's not just the high level officials that are pinning a medal on somebody. It's, what does that medal mean to that person? What is that? Why was that medal created? What is this supposed to be for? And learning those details really puts a whole new perspective on what a commemoration is, why we do the things we do, why we fold a flag a certain way. Why do we, say certain words? Why does taps get played? All those have meaning, and learning about those processes and how they were developed and when they came about, I think can be a big role for technology being put in as a tool of teaching. We not tech savvy. We have a great videographer that loves to put amazing program videos together and tell the story of what we do. But we also do YouTube lives we have one coming up on February 1st, actually, with a veteran that went to the Netherlands and Belgium this past September and December.
Great.
And so people from all over the world can join on this YouTube live and ask a question to the veteran. And we schedule them for an hour. They usually go 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours, depending on the veteran. And they just talk and we take questions. And most of the audience is 13 to 25. So they're utilizing this technology to connect with other generations, which is incredible.
That's really special that you're leveraging that way and thinking different. I think it really fits within that kind of trend line as an organization. What is your trend line through your career? If you could kind of identify a pattern through it. I think I have some ideas. There's some trends,
okay.
But what do you think?
A big part of why I started and why I do what I do is because of my 2 grandfathers. They didn't really speak about it. They both were World War II veterans, both were wounded very significantly. And so after they passed away, I kind of made it my mission to figure out what their story is. I have now adopted hundreds of grandfathers.
Love that.
It is something that I treat them all like family. And I don't really know why this passion. It is very singular.
Yeah.
And I am interested in other aspects of history. I like to learn. I like to talk about the effects that it has on the world and moving forward into the future. My other kind of passion is really promoting women's history and really putting women back into the story, because World War II kind of takes them out of it a lot of times. And so those are my whys and why I do it. And I'm really lucky that I have a team of people who also have whys that are along the same lines. So yeah.
Can I ask, based on what you just said, is there maybe a specific story about a woman whose story maybe got taken away during World War II that struck you or sticks with you, like one that you want to share?
So I've been doing a lot of learning about war correspondence. So recently a film just came out with Kate Winslet about Lee Miller, but there are hundreds of women who went into Europe prior to even World War II starting, into Spain when they were in their civil war, reporting for major news networks across the world for both Britain and the United States. These women were not allowed in combat areas. They were not allowed to be really involved in anything, and they pushed their way forward anyway. They were reporting for huge news agencies, and nobody knew their story. Lee Miller is an anomaly. I think she's come out recently. Her story, she's kind of a ball buster and didn't really give a you-know-what about any man telling her what to do.
Nice.
So There will always be women. The 6888 is another story that we learned about a couple of years ago. We learned that 3 of the 6888 women are buried in the Normandy cemetery. And so in 2023, we were able to pay respects to one of them. Just incredible. There are so many that we do not know, and I'm uncovering them by the day, honestly.
Yeah. That's incredible work that you're able to go back and shine a light on forgotten spots in history.
So when people ask you, a lot of these conflicts, they're big topics, they're complicated. What book do you find you like the most gift to people to cover, say, World War II? There's no go-to. Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't have a go-to. I mean, I have kind of my battle specific ones.
Yeah. Okay.
But I always I'm not a big military battle person. So even when I was studying, I mean, I was a military history major, and even when I was studying, I was like, if I have to hear about guns and military strategy, I'm not into it. Like, give me the stories, give me the books full of oral histories, and I'm deep diving. Like, John Brokaw's Greatest Generation is a must read. Just those Day of Infamy for Pearl Harbor. Those kinds of stories.
Making notes actively as you're talking.
I think just hearing those individual stories is so important because it humanizes war. It doesn't just glance over as strategy and who wins and who doesn't, because history changes that quite often. And so you can't take away someone's personal story.
And I think that's where we're kind of kindred spirits in a sense, because that's what we really believe is we connect through story. And if we can present as many stories as we can, and if people can connect just to one of those stories as they go across a headstone, there's, I talk about Walter Chatter quite often, and he's in the Normandy Canadian Cemetery. And through our research and collecting stories, we came across his letters to his son, Tommy. And there's just a telegraph in particular that just reminds me of like a text I would send to my son. And what you see in that telegram is a loving dad who missed his family. And then the heartbreak is that he never made it back. And the thought of just how many Canadians and visitors have gone by his grave, not knowing that about him. And so it's that ability to share those stories over the battle that humanizes. And then I think that's where we can start connecting to that level of sacrifice. And that's why what the Best Defense Foundation does is just phenomenal, because you're connecting people to those stories directly.
Yeah. We utilized the Memory Anchor when we were in Normandy. And we always spend a quiet morning at the Normandy American Cemetery, kind of away from the public before or on one of the days, usually one of the beginning days of the program. And so even our veterans, our caregivers were kind of helping them use it. And even our veterans would stop, and they had no connection. Some of our veterans are Pacific War veterans. They don't even have that connection to Europe, but they wanted to sit there and learn. And they wanted to sit there and just give that moment to someone who may have never had another moment after June 6th or whenever they died during the war. And so that was very helpful for us, for our team, for our veterans to make that connection. I think it made it that more special. So we appreciated that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know, Matthew and I had the opportunity, and we were sitting in Bretteville Cemetery, and there's some veterans there who were actively using it and looking up friends. And we watched Bill Wilson and his family use it and go and to witness this touching moment where he goes to the grave and everybody gave him space. He got out of his wheelchair, stood up, laid a rose at his friend's grave, saluted. It was just a moment you can't really describe, because it was so touching, beautiful, sad, all of it.
The commitment that Bill had to honor his friend, the amount of work and effort it took for him to stand up out of his wheelchair. And then, he used the rest of the energy he had to bend over, to squat down and place the rose. It was just an act that, like Ryan said, it's hard to really convey the emotion behind it without really being there and watching him experience the feeling of honoring his friend.
And that's what, Amanda, you cultivate all the time. And I think you have like the best job in the world. Like, little envious, but that's it. It's so beautiful to witness. And you have this amazing organization that is just cultivating those experiences and helping volunteers connect to that and students. It's amazing. So I guess that kind of leads me to my next question is what's the future looking like for you? What's something you're excited?
Yeah, so this year we've got all of our programs planned out. Obviously, we're going to go back to Normandy. We have a lot of interest from our World War II veterans to keep traveling. And this is the 80th anniversary of many World War II battles. So we're closing out World War II. Not really, I don't ever want to say we're closing out because we will never stop.
Yeah.
Kind of closing out the main anniversaries of World War II. We'll do Normandy again. We will most likely do something surrounding the surrender in September. And we're still kind of formulating what that looks like. And then we are starting Vietnam at the end of 2025. Those programs will start small, just as we started our World War II ones with 10 to 15 veterans. And then we will grow that program as time goes by. We'll continue to do our Stronghold transition programs. We have this amazing retreat in Utah. It's only open during summer months because of the weather. So from May to September, we'll hold, I think we are up to 10 cohorts this
year.
So you're
adding more? Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. And then we are going to do a next gen program for every battlefield return we do. So typically we've only focused on Normandy, but we're growing that to bring students back to other places as well with these veterans. So we've got a lot in the works. We've got a lot of work to do, but it's all really exciting. We're growing exponentially. We just want to get the word out for people to know who we are, what we do, and how we can help.
Well, that's amazing. So if people did want to connect more, what would be the socials website that they can go check out your work?
Yeah, so we're on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for now, and
maybe, yeah.
Then just Best Defense Foundation. You can also watch all of our program videos on our YouTube channel, which you'll deep dive and you'll spend hours just watching those videos. They're incredible. And you can donate at bestdefensefoundation.org, bdf.org. There's an easy donate button there, so we'd appreciate it.
That's amazing. We'll definitely check that out and we'll make sure that gets into the show notes. Amanda, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your thoughts and perspective, in particular, some of those stories and just connecting all the different programs and veterans and the good work that you and your volunteers are doing. I want to just thank the listeners for joining us today. If you've enjoyed today's show, please make sure to follow, like, and share. And that is it for today. Any last thoughts, Matthew, Matt?
No. Just so great to see you, Amanda. If there's anything the Best Defense Foundation stands for, it's doing things right, the right way. Incredible fans of what you're doing, and really excited to see what the next few years hold for you, because I think it's just always up and to the right. So thanks for taking the time today.
And thank you guys for your support as well. We truly appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to see you again and chat with you. The time that I got to spend with you in Normandy was, the moments that I'll never forget. So thanks for the time that we shared together in Normandy, and also for the time that you spent together with us here.
A bit chaotic, but yes.
It was intense.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again, Amanda.
Thank you.